can't hear you for some reason. Hold on. I don't know if I can maybe unmute it. For some reason, I can't hear you. Oh,
now you can.
Hi.
How you doing? I have no idea how these things work, to be dead honest with you.
No, honestly, I was kind of to and fro whether or not to do it via StreamYard or through Zoom, and I hadn't a clue how to use Zoom. And I'm like, I don't know, we'll just go for it and we'll see. But thank you so very much for deciding to come on this conversation. I'm really excited about it. So
No problem. Are you from Scotland?
yes, I am. Yeah, I'm 20 minutes down from Glasgow. So yeah.
Oh, I thought you were, for some reason, I thought you were in Britain. No.
No. And it's just,
No.
and the thing is as well, it's strange at the moment because obviously the Queen's just died and everybody's just stopped working and it's just insane in the UK right now. So yeah, it's kind of strange times for us, but hey, life goes on. You've got to kind of keep going on.
Yeah, I was wondering because they can't, I'm a bike racer, so they canceled the Tour of Britain on Friday.
Oh, everything's cancelled.
Yeah, they canceled Friday, Saturday, and Sunday stage. And I don't really watch the news. And I didn't know why. I was hoping somebody didn't get, injured in the bike race. And then I saw the headline or the banner that said the Queen has died and the bike race is canceled.
Yeah.
So.
Football games, cricket, everything's cancelled. I'm actually flying off to Africa on the day of her funeral. And I haven't a clue if my flight's still going to be there or not. I'm hoping it is because I want to go to Africa. So yeah, I'm hoping it's back to normal for then. So we'll see.
And you're a new mom.
Yes, 3 times now. That's me, and I'm finished. I'm back.
I think my mother said the same thing after the 3rd. She said, I'm done.
Everybody tells me that. Everyone says the 3rd one's the worst. And it's so true. It just gets progressively worse bit by bit. There's a few people going to join us, but I think most people are going to catch up later on. I think they're still at work, to be honest. But yeah. It's horrendous, honestly. I'm still trying to catch up with sleep, and it's just, it's not good.
Whatever works for you works for me. I'm on my couch, and this is my view, so.
That's amazing. Well, I'm in my garden pod. This is where I do a lot of my grooming and things. So it's just outside my house as well, so it's quite good. So anyway, we'll get straight to the point now, Mark, because I know that you're on a strict kind of time frame as well. So first of all, to any of you guys that are watching, thank you for joining us. And I'm here with the wonderful Dr. Marc Bekoff, who is from Colorado, and he is a leading scientist in his field. I'm a big fan, so I'm a wee bit nervous, but I'm gonna go straight on to Mark, and I'm gonna ask you, Mark, if it's okay, to tell us a wee bit about yourself and the kind of things that you do work-wise, including your books and things as well.
Sure, I'll be very brief.
Oh, I know it's a long list.
No, I'm an ethologist. I study animal behavior in the field, and I apply the ethological method, if you will, to dogs. So I look at dogs. Domestic dogs really aren't wild animals, although they're free-ranging and feral dogs. But the same methods I use, and observation is really the critical component of what I do, just spending thousands of hours up until now over the years watching dogs. And I've done field studies on wild coyotes for 8.5 years, and I've studied penguins in Antarctica. And I think the thing that differentiates what ethologists do from, say, what psychologists might do is I really look at the evolution of behavior. I look at how the behavior of domestic dogs changes with ecological conditions, because people fail to realize that the home of a dog, if they're a home dog, is really their niche. And so if I watch dogs inside, it's field work inside. And I'm interested in the evolution and ecology of behavior, like I said. So why do dogs do the things they do? Why have the behavior patterns evolved? What are they good for? How do they develop? What causes them? So that's basically what I do. And there's not a lot of people who are studying dogs who are doing that kind of work. I mean, there's a number of them. So this informs how I view grooming, for example, and this informs how I view feeding dogs and walking dogs. And, the bottom line I always say is that dogs have to be dogs and should be given every opportunity to decide what they want.
Yeah.
And to understand them also as descendants of wolves. So they still have a lot in their wolf brain going on. They've got neural engrams in their brain, and they've got genes. So that's it in a nutshell.
It's absolutely fascinating. And the thing is, I'd never even thought about it, because see, when we start our training into grooming, we're seldom we have that history of canine behavior and emotions there in our training. So it was actually when I came across the ISCP's course on canine psychology that a lot of the references were of your books, and it was an absolute eye-opener to actually understand the advancement of emotions and the needs of animals. And in particular, the first one I remember reading was The Emotional Lives of Animals, which is a fantastic book. I mean, if you guys haven't had it already, or you've not read it already, then certainly have a look at it. But obviously, in the context of grooming, there's very little opportunity for dogs to choose how they're treated and how they're handled. And it's certainly the way of the HGA to try and change that approach and utilise more consent-based methods in the grooming environment in order to do that. So obviously I've sent you a list of questions that some of our students have sent into us, and I'll just get them up now. Some of them are relevant to what we do in the salon, but there are a couple of ones that were kind of more to do with your work out with dogs as well. So we'll just start with the kind of dog grooming specific type questions. So there's one, and I think you mentioned about nose fatigue in your Canine Confidential book, and it's a really interesting topic to talk about, because obviously in the grooming environment there is an array of scents that we're dealing with, specifically in products and things as well. So the first question was, you mentioned nose fatigue in your book. Do you think that the professional grooming environment can cause nose fatigue? And how do you think that groomers can go about reducing that likelihood in the salon?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I hadn't thought of it with respect to grooming. I mean, I suppose it could. And I suppose just being around if you're indoors, being around a house where people are cooking and making smelly soups and meals, it can. The reason that I think we wrote, I may have written about it in that book, but we wrote about it in a book called Unleashing Our Dog, is that you wonder sometimes whether too many odors or too many odors, too strong odors, could be aversive to a dog.
Yeah.
My answer is it depends on the dog, and a lot of the questions you've asked and I've gone through, it really depends on the individual dog. I mean, I had some dogs who would get over. They'd get edgy if they smelled me making some, spicy pasta sauce or something like that, and others just would come into the kitchen because I fed them human food, and they would just sit there panting or just begging. And I don't like calling it begging, but it is a good example, because perfumes, I mean, I don't know much about grooming, to be honest with you, but perfumes or other scents could overload them, or I suppose they could be aversive. Yeah. So my recommendation is the groomer looks at the dog. They should be well versed in dog behavior.
Yeah.
And you could tell, are they whimpering? Are they salivating? What's their body posture? And, things like that. The other thing I thought about, since I don't know much about grooming, is I know some groomers where they work with the dog so the dog isn't held still. I mean, I've seen pictures where they're held still on the table. Well, that really reduces the movement of the dog. I don't know. I mean, and I don't know if it's I obviously don't cut my hair, but if I got a haircut, and if I sat in a chair, I wouldn't mind maybe having somebody cut my hair, but I wouldn't want a noose around my neck or being tied down to the chair. So I think from a practical grooming point of view, it would be good to have a dog who sits on the table or wherever you place them, but they have we call it agency. They have the ability to choose whether they want to be there or not and express themselves. Because a friend of mine in town went to a groomer around Boulder, and while the woman was a great groomer, she didn't seem to pay any attention to the well-being of the dog. When the dog left, the dog was clearly stressed, looked pretty or handsome, but she never went back. She found a groomer who allowed the dog just to be wherever the dog wanted to be, if you will, and groom him.
Yeah. See, the thing is, Mark, as well, a lot of the kind of old timers in our industry and a lot of newcomers coming into the industry as well are taught that safety derives from control, particularly in this environment. And what we try and encourage groomers to do through the academy certainly is try and come from the idea that safety derives from consent, because it's exactly how you see it. I mean, if you put a neck noose on me, I'm not going to relax. In fact, you probably resist more, and then there's that escalation of behaviours, and then you get that kind of fight response then. So what would you say in terms of safety in the grooming environment from that kind of perspective of, less restraints is certainly going to make the dog feel a lot more comfortable and consensual? Would you say that there's a higher risk of bites in that instance, or would you say that you're actually reducing the likelihood of a bite with less restraints?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, once again, it depends on the dog. Maybe 2 or 3 of my dogs might not have minded, if you will, standing on a table. Sometimes you see that with something around their neck. They were pretty laid back and they felt comfortable. But I think a couple of my dogs, I don't know if they would have bitten aggressively, but they would have nipped. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have liked the unsteady posture on a table. One of them hated heights. I don't know why. I mean, I rescued him, but he really liked his feet on the ground.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't think it would have been a real aggressive bite, but he would have been really upset. Or 3 of them would have been. And, frankly, for 2 of them, I don't know a hell of a lot about where they came from.
Yeah.
But those are the things they didn't like. They didn't like one of them, my last dog, didn't like having his paws touched. And, I thought every now and again that I'd paint his nails with fluorescent, colors. He wouldn't care, but it would look funny. But no, you couldn't get to him.
Yeah.
So I think it's funny because when you contacted me a few months ago and I read through your book, I mean, it's like grooming could be really fun and positive.
Yeah.
Just like dog training, or it could be really negative.
Yeah.
So people who do forced dog training and zap dogs and punish them, I could see grooming possibly falling into that category. But my friends who get their dogs groomed, the dogs love it. I mean, it's enriching to them.
Yeah, and it is, and I talk about that in my book as well. If we even go back to the primitive days, grooming's always been there, and it's always been introduced in a positive way. It's only when we intervene and we start adding on things like physical restraints and a lack of consent where we start to develop those negative associations down the line. So the second question was, and that
and let me just say something. You use the word consent a lot. That's huge.
Yeah.
The dogs have to agree with you.
Yeah.
But they have to agree that what you want them to do, regardless of grooming or other venues, they have to agree and give consent. And people sometimes laugh and say, well, dogs can't give consent. Yeah, dogs can consent. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's like thinking dogs don't. Somebody just asked me recently, do dogs enjoy playing? And I went, boy, I'm glad I'm not your dog.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
it's getting out of that outdated belief that, dogs are objects, they're mechanical, they don't have that ability to feel and process feeling. And we talk about that, actually, you talk about that an awful lot in all your books and your studies on psychology and things as well that you've posted. Do you think that dogs can feel more than our kind of primary emotions?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, dogs can feel the emotions we feel.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm cutting through the chase because of time, but, the one emotion we don't know about is, do they feel guilt? I believe they feel guilt.
Yeah.
But a woman named Alexandra Horowitz, very well-known dog researcher, she did a study some years ago where she showed that humans weren't very good at reading guilt, but it's been misinterpreted for the last, 13 or 14 years. All she said was, we're not good at reading guilt. She didn't say dogs don't feel guilt.
Yeah.
So that's the one. But jealousy, there's been some really good studies replicating using the methods they use with pre-verbal children. So they use with dogs because dogs can't speak, Scottish or English or Spanish. And then there was a study looking at neuroimaging, and it turns out if you set up a situation where a dog would be jealous, say seeing another dog getting food, the same part of the dog's brain lights up as in humans. I mean, to me, that's the gold standard. Do they feel jealousy? They do. So in terms of the emotional lives of dogs and other animals, the real question is, why have they evolved, not if they have evolved. And if you get past the question of the if question, then you've got a whole world of study there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We find an awful lot of groomers as well that maybe aren't studying canine behaviour. They'll say things like, for example, if they have a dog on the table that's resisting a lot of what we're trying to do, the dog's being spiteful. What's your opinion of that comment?
Well, I think dogs can feel spite. That's a pretty difficult one to know, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it in a very simple way is keep the door open to all the possibilities until they're really studied.
Yeah.
So when people say dogs can't feel spite, well, I don't know that. Do I think they can? I think they can, but do I know it? I don't.
Mark, I have to tell you a quick story about this. The other night, my wee miniature poodle, all right, so she sleeps in our bedroom, but she has a bed on the floor, but obviously we've got the newborn at the moment, and he's in the next to me crib, right? So the other night there, Lola wouldn't settle, so she kept jumping up and down on the bed all night. And it got to the point where I said to my husband, I'm going to have to put her downstairs because she's going to end up jumping on the baby.
Yep.
So I placed her downstairs, and the next morning I've came down the stairs and Lola's there, and she runs up the stairs and she jumps on my bed and she pees all over my bed.
Oh yeah. So my neighbor had a very similar situation, and he asked me, is it spite? And I went, let's put it this way. They're feeling something. And if we did it, it would be spite. So to me, there's nothing lost by saying they feel spite.
Yeah.
I'm going to shut my window quickly, okay? Because they're going to be doing some work here. Sorry, people.
No problem.
All right.
There's always something, isn't there? There's always something.
Oh, they're doing work around here, and I hope they know what they're doing.
My goodness, no, we've got work getting done in the kitchen. That's why I'm in the pod today, because it's just drilling constantly, and it's doing my head in. So the next question was, I thought this was a really good one actually. What has been your most eye-opening revelation throughout your career so far? Now there must be loads.
There's been many of them, but once, I mean, you read all about empathy and caregiving and how elephants are very emotional. And when I was in northern Kenya, I saw an elephant named Babel who had an injured right rear leg. And I was with a man named Ian Douglas Hamilton, who's like the Jane Goodall of elephants. And I asked him what happened, and he said he wasn't sure why the leg was mangled. It could have been done by a predator, or it could have been congenital. And all the elephants were waiting for her. She walked at a snail's pace. And you know, when I wrote up a story about it, and some of my colleagues said, well, you know, she must have been able to do something for them. Well, she couldn't do anything. If she would have been left alone, she would have been killed in a heartbeat by a predator. Mm-hmm. So they went back and escorted her. They fed her. They cleared the path in front of her. I mean, that was an eye-opening thing. And then just spending thousands of hours in the wild studying coyotes and also watching wolves, just seeing what they do. They play, they care for other individuals. All the myths about fighting being predominating, they're myths. They do fight.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's been observations of alpha dominant wolves, if you will, playing with youngsters. And there's a great observation of one helping a youngster who had been rejected by his pack. So I could go on and tell you about the one most important, but there isn't one most important. It's just once again, going in with an open mind, an open heart, and watching the animals. You know, like what Jane Goodall did, you know, the Goodall method. Just watch them. Yeah. And oh my goodness, just like, once again, just watch dogs. And you'll learn a lot.
I think a lot of groomers, they don't realize that they're probably spending, other than obviously the dog carers, but they're probably spending the most time with each individual dog in their career, because we're seeing them so many times throughout their lifespan that we've got that really good kind of case study there to observe and monitor.
Absolutely. And also by watching individual dogs, you know, the other big thing is there's no universal dog. Dogs are individuals. They differ. When I was studying wild coyotes and the babies would come out of the den at give or take 3 weeks of age, you already had different personalities. You know, you had bold ones, shy ones, timid pups, and some who were just so obnoxious you wish that you would never see them again. I didn't wish them ill will, but I thought, fine.
I love you. Yeah.
And the same with dogs. I mean, when I studied very young dogs, I mean, there's individual differences, you know, almost when they're born.
Mm-hmm. There's an awful lot of talk about functional characteristics these days as well within litters, and being able to identify the right family for each individual puppy, not just a breed now. So I think that's really interesting, and it's something that I'm going to follow. I don't know if you've ever heard of a lady called Dr. Isla Fishburne. She does a lot of work in that kind of area, and it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Jane Goodall. There is a few questions about obviously your work alongside Jane Goodall. So could you tell us more about that kind of part of your career?
Well, I've never really done research with Jane, you know, in the field, but we wrote a book together. We've written articles together. She wrote your
forewords.
What's that?
She wrote your forewords as well.
Oh, yeah. She's written some forwards. I have a new book coming out next June that's called Dogs Demystified, and it's basically an encyclopedia of dog behavior and dog-human relationships. And Jane just this summer wrote the foreword. She's wonderful. I mean, she really is who people think she is. She's warm. She's brilliant. She's, as far as I'm concerned, just right there. You know, no BS, as I say.
You know, you could do with more of that these days, I think, as well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I think one of the questions, hold on, I'm trying to kind of pick certain ones because I know we don't have much time. There's a good one. So in all of your years of research thus far, what is the one thing that animals have taught you?
Yeah, once again, it's hard to say one thing, but I mean, the one thing I've learned from watching diverse animals, from birds to insects to penguins to coyotes and wolves and dogs and free-ranging home dogs, feral dogs, is, I mean, the one thing that I've learned from those experiences, once again, is you got to watch these animals as individuals very carefully and keep an open mind. I mean, after 8.5 years of studying wild coyotes, we were still learning things.
Yeah.
And so, you have these long-term studies of individual animals. When I say they come and go, they're born, some die, some leave the study area. But once again, it's focusing on the nitty-gritty behavior that they express, looking at their social relationships, and keeping an open mind, because sometimes it would frustrate me when I would be in the field and people would come in and they would see something that they never believed could happen. And once again, even with dogs, just at dog parks, you begin to think, well, you've seen it all. And the minute you think you've seen it all, you haven't. But to me, what stands out is like Babel the elephant, how much kindness and compassion there is among these animals. Yes, they fight. Yes, they squabble. But the predominant behavior patterns, especially among the social carnivores, and especially among, say, the wild relatives of dogs, is they show empathy, they show care, they show compassion, they play, and they express a full spectrum of emotions. Once again, what that you might see at home or in a grooming parlor. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I think, yeah, no, I know. It's one of those things. I think our industry is just kind of gradually catching up with science right now. We're quite outdated in our beliefs and our approach, unfortunately, and it is very much force-based. And we're just trying to obviously raise awareness of the significance of understanding how animals are all different and they all are individual and they need that bespoke care plan. And it's also trying to encourage synchronicity across all sectors as well. So what we find as groomers is it's quite difficult to develop our relationships with the likes of behaviourists and trainers and vets and things, because it's trying to find that kind of common ground.
Yes.
Yeah. But what's your advice on that then as well? Like, how do we try and convince more people of the importance of developing our understanding of science?
Well, I mean, my take on it is very simple. You could focus on dogs at first, but you could do cats and other companion animals. Is you need to become fluent or literate in dog.
Yeah.
I wish that there could be a little check sheet that when somebody goes to a breeder, or hopefully they go to a rescue center, they can read they could have a 2-page check sheet of what different behavior patterns mean. I mean, there's a danger there because growling doesn't always mean that a dog is aggressive, and a play bow doesn't always mean the dog wants to play. But just a general understanding of, like dog 101.
Yeah.
I really think that will go a long way. And I spend a lot of time at dog parks, not only around my home in Boulder, but I've spent in many other places. I love when people ask me questions. I just love when they say, what's going on there? A lot of the times I say, I don't know. And they'll say, well, you're the expert, you should know. And I say, no, the reason I say I don't know is because I do know a lot about dog behavior and I have no idea what's going on.
There's a quote, isn't there? It's the more I learn, the less I know.
Yeah. That's what I wrote an article about that the more I learn, the more I say I don't know.
It is a Pandora's box, isn't it? It is. You just.
Well, I think it's important just because of not only individual differences in dogs, but the individual differences that dogs have with humans, their own humans and others. And when it's funny, when I first started writing about that, maybe a year or two ago, that when when you train dogs, when you groom dogs, when you interact with them in whatever way you do, you not only need to know the dog, but you need to know about their relationship with their and other humans. And I mean, I didn't think that was like Albert Einstein. I just thought it's important, but I work with a couple of trainers around Boulder who are outstanding, positive, force-free trainers. And they glommed onto that.
Yep.
And once again, they spend a lot of time with the human without the dog, as well as the human with the dog with whom they're trying to solve a quote problem or have the dog unlearn or learn something. So I was thinking about this weekend, that sure, the grooming environment is different, but in some ways it really shares a lot of the same characteristics as a dog sitting by a coffee shop, a dog watching TV, a dog running with other dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a dog, you've got a human, you're doing something to them, some dogs might look at it as threatening. Some dogs may really welcome it, but a lot of it depends on their feelings about being with, sometimes I guess you would be a strange human, but even a familiar human. How do they feel?
Yeah.
Did they have a good night's sleep? Did they have a bad dream? I mean, people sometimes laugh at that, but not anymore. People really realize that when you've got a dog as a fully sentient being, the past and thoughts about the future interact with what they're doing at the present and how they feel in the present moment.
Yeah. A lot of what we try and encourage as well is that it's trying to get out of that mindset that, it's a one size fits all, like every dog's suitable for that specific grooming environment. And we're trying to, encourage groomers to have an open mind and be willing to say, you know what, this environment is not right for this dog, but who can we refer them on to that's maybe got an alternative, setup or environment, or, it's not always salon based, for example, maybe a home visitation groomer or a, one-to-one groomer,
Absolutely. And some vets I know who have partners, other vets will tell me, I mean, once again, not surprising, that some vets get along better with some dogs, better than other vets get along with the dogs. Well, that makes sense. I mean, my dogs were pretty mellow and they like people, but there were some people that they didn't particularly enjoy. And it could have simply been because of how they were treated in their formative months or years. So, I mean, that's, I really appreciate you saying that, because once again, some dogs wouldn't mind being in a certain situation or position, or, when they're being groomed, and others might really dislike it. So don't generalize. That's kind of the other thing, that there's individual differences. There's no universal dog. So therefore you don't generalize across dogs, and not to generalize across dogs and their relationships with people. They can be, I always, the big myths that dogs are unconditional lovers and they're our best friends. No. Dogs are not unconditional lovers. They're very choosy. And then they're not our best friends. I mean, dog abuse globally is off scale. So the reason I say that is because you read it all the time. Well, dogs are our best friends. And I'm thinking of all the dogs I've seen who have been abused, and all the dogs who have been dumped at kennels, or dogs who are dumped in the streets, even around Boulder. Well, they may be your and my best friends, and your students and your colleagues' best friends. So once again, the reason I say that is, when you say things like they're our best friends or they're unconditional lovers, you're really cutting the dog short. Dogs are choosy. I mean, I always say dogs will sniff pretty much any other dog's butt, but beyond that, it's they're choosy.
Another thing that we do is holistic groomers is we're quite insistent in having what we call like a meet and treat type appointment. That's before any physical grooming, any demands take place, and we incorporate things like ACE-free work. And again, it's just a way to try and identify the dog's likes and dislikes, the different sounds, smells, textures, etc. I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. That's why I love when one of the trainers in town will spend the first time she meets a dog and they're human, she'll spend the same amount of time with the human as with the dog.
Yeah.
And they'll meet where the problem is taking place, which
Okay.
I think is really important.
Okay.
I mean, I always say I'm not a trainer, and I had some dogs, one who I rescued who I didn't know anything about, except that he was a love muffin. And I couldn't stop him from running to the door and barking. I lived in the mountains. It didn't really bother me. I had no neighbors. But I thought, I don't really want you to do that, because it kind of upset some people when they came to the door. I couldn't do it. So I called the dog trainer and she started laughing. She said, "You need me?" And I went, "I do need you." And once again, it's because I'm not fluent in dog training. I don't know how to, So once again, I was thinking this weekend that in some ways the relationship that a groomer has with a dog is almost a relationship that you would have if you were training a dog, especially like a first-time client.
Yeah.
You're in a sense teaching them what you would like them to do. Do they agree? And then how do you make it enriching, not only for the dog, but for the human?
Yeah.
I always used to think that I would not, if I were to take my dog to a groomer, I would want them to be an up person, not someone who resents what they're doing. They may come out all chopped up or with bleached hair or something. I don't know, but but you've got that really tight relationship there. And grooming is invading a dog's personal space.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a negative thing to say, but you're not only going maybe good dog or holding them, you're actually, I don't know, clipping. I don't know if you clip their nails. I don't. Do you? I mean, you can, but
everything, Mark. Even a sanitary clip, if you imagine what that is, around about the groin with clippers and things as well, and you think very personal areas.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. Some dogs might like it. Some dogs will not like it.
Yeah.
And they'll definitely be a better. I mean, there'll be a better chance of them liking it, if you will, if they know that you're respecting them.
Yeah.
I mean, and consent. I love that you're doing that, because I was talking to a vet from Australia recently who was in Boulder, and he's a vet, and he's really a great veterinary ethologist. And the word consent must have come up, 25 times in an hour. But it's important. I mean, I want to give consent to somebody doing something to my body or intruding into my personal space. Well, you should extend that respect and dignity and kindness to a dog.
Yeah. I know, and you still get those naysayers that say it's absolutely ridiculous, unfortunately, but we just have to keep planting seeds, I suppose, and hopefully the tree will grow.
It's all you can do.
Yeah.
But once again, I don't know the area, but I suppose groomers have to be licensed, or do they?
No, so it's not a regulated industry. Nope.
Same with training.
Yeah.
Anybody in the United States, but in almost every country in the world, can put up dog trainer.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that I think, you're obviously accomplished, and I'm sure your students are, is getting some kind of regulation.
Yeah. Well, our issue with that, Mark, is that while we want regulation, we don't really believe that the curriculum is where it should be. It's still too outdated.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So those people that, the groomers that are qualified are getting trained outdated methods. There's no consent and there's no cooperative, based techniques being taught. It's all very much string the dog up and force your way through it. And that's, I think, what a lot of people are put off with getting their qualification to then get regulated down the line.
Right.
It's one of those ones where I think the industry still needs a wee bit of work on it. It's the same with training, I suppose, as well. Work out whether or not like who would qualify then, like under regulation terms, in order, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, I'm not laughing, because I totally agree with you, but I wouldn't want to go to a doctor for a surgery and have them say, I've really never done this before, or I'm not certified. I ride my bike with a lot of orthopedic surgeons, and their training is just amazing. And I wrote an article a couple of years ago that people should pick their dog trainers, and I would put groomers in there too, as carefully as they would pick a neurosurgeon.
Yeah.
I mean, your comment before, I realized, I've been thinking about it, is that grooming, you're touching a dog. Sometimes they don't want to be touched.
Yeah.
There was this dumb article a couple of years ago that said we shouldn't hug dogs. And I responded to it by saying, some dogs like to be hugged like some humans. Some don't. If you don't like to be hugged, or they don't, then don't hug them. But grooming is a really intimate experience. Yeah. How would you like it if I met you and I sat you down, I just started cutting your hair or cutting your nails and painting your nails with a chain around your neck? I don't think nobody I know would like that, including me.
I always compare it to like a horror film. It's like like Jigsaw, or one of those Chainsaw Massacre or whatever. You just don't know what the dog's seeing from their perspective. It's obviously frightening, and it's just trying to come from the perspective of someone else rather than ourselves and our own expectations.
Right.
It's just about planting seeds, isn't it? I suppose.
That's a great way. That's a great way to put it. And I hadn't, like I said, when you first got a hold of me, I started thinking about it a lot. And I thought that grooming is really an intrusion into personal space with some control. I may intrude into the personal space of a dog in the street, but he or she can walk away from me. Yeah. And I actually think there was something I was going to say before, but I've implied it. Is I think your human clients, your human guardians, maybe they realize it and maybe they don't, but I don't know that they do. A friend of mine went to a groomer, dropped her dog off, left the dog, came back. The dog looked pretty or handsome. I can't remember, male or female, but I guess guys can look pretty. I was going to say guys can look pretty and women can look handsome. But the dog was really freaked out.
Yeah.
And she never, she didn't blame, she more blamed herself than the groomer, because she should have walked, she should have came, what she felt in retrospect is she walked in, she should have stayed with the dog, watched what was happening, and not, not necessarily partake in the grooming or the pedicure or manicure or whatever, but been there for the dog's security, because dogs need to feel safe.
Thank you for that. Thank you, because a lot of the time, groomers will completely refuse to have owners present, guardians present.
I know that. It's funny.
Oh, it's so annoying. Because what I try and say to people is, well, if you're wanting that extra security, rather than having physical handling restraints, have the dog carer present.
Yep.
That's going to make the dog feel safer. It's an extra pair of hands as well, and that dog's comfortable, or you'd like to hope so anyway, that dog's comfortable with his dog carer being there and handling them. And so many groomers just don't realise and don't utilise that opportunity.
Yep.
So you think that would definitely help speed on the process of...
Well, yeah, you do. You would hope people would do it when they go to a vet.
Yeah.
And the relationship, it's a different sort of intimacy, but the relationship you have with the vet is very intimate, making life or death decisions. And while a groomer may not do that, you're making decisions that you could really change a dog for a really long time.
Yeah.
When you go to, the after effect of being at a groomer who doesn't respect who the dog is, could change that dog for a long time.
Exactly, yeah. And there's things as well as a fantastic way to educate and to show your value to a client. And there's no better learning than actually visually seeing it in action. And it's like you're trying to work at that relationship where, you no longer have to try and explain it. You're showing the value in a more cooperative and consensual practice.
If I were to take my dog to a groomer, I would expect the same respect that I would get from a veterinarian, if you will. Show that you show that you care about the dog as the individual they are, whether you've met them before, but also show the human that you care about them.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you sort of
process for them as well, because they don't know what to expect.
yes.
Yeah.
All
right, so I know that we've only got 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that would work fine. Yeah, I think we're good. They're going to be sandblasting some rust here. No, I know. I tried. They were supposed to finish it on Friday, and I knew I was going to talk to you on Monday.
Oh, no.
And
It's fine. It never goes. And it was the course of true love never runs smooth, but it's the same with workmen.
yeah, exactly.
Never runs smooth. Tell us. So I want to tap into your next book then, because you mentioned that you're about to publish that book, and I'm sure that that's going to be a great resource for everyone studying via the HGA. So tell us more about the book and when's it released and whatever.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you hear the background?
No, can you hear mine? My dog's barking.
No, that's good. I found some earphones.
Okay.
The book is basically an encyclopedia of dog behavior from A to Z.
Okay.
So if somebody wants to look up a particular entry, they can just look it up alphabetically.
Right.
It's based totally on science. It's easy to read. I'm trying to unhook my microphone. Let me just do this now.
So you should get wireless ones, Bluetooth ones. Is that what they're too technical?
Yeah, it covers everything.
Right.
I mean, it covers grooming. I've got you in it. It does. It really just covers everything.
Okay.
And the purpose is to educate people. So if no, I don't really know that anybody reads a dictionary or an encyclopedia from cover to cover. Yeah. But if you have a problem, anxiety, depression, food aversion, feeding, and all the possible behaviors you can think about, all the emotions.
Wonderful.
I'm really excited about it because it's really written for people. I mean, the purpose of the book is to make them fluent in dog, but it's really written for people who aren't. So it could be written for people who have lived with dogs for a really long time. Mm-hmm. And it could simply be for somebody who's getting their first dog or trying to figure out whether they want to get their dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, when's that getting published then, Mark? Is it already out, or when does it get released?
No, next June.
Next June. Oh my goodness, that's so long to
wait. I know, but that's how publishing works.
Oh no, that's why I self-publish. I've got too much. I've got itchy feet syndrome. I cannot cope. I'm in the middle of writing a pet bereavement book at the moment. I lost my wee dash hound last May there.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, the heartbreak. I've never experienced grief like it. I have to be honest with you. I've lost people in my family, but I've never grieved the way I grieved my wee dog, honestly. It's horrendous. Can you hear?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I don't even know how to use these things, but there we go.
Gosh, I think we have covered quite a few of the questions. There's loads of ones to do with your opinion of conservation. Let me see, I can't even find them now.
Well, the questions on compassionate conservation are really good.
Yeah.
The way it would apply, and I thought about it since I do a lot of work on that, is so compassionate conservation really has a number of founding principles. The first is do no harm. And the second of the four is that all individuals matter.
Okay.
So it really applies to training, and I've written about it somewhere, and it would apply to grooming, meaning that you don't want to harm a dog when you're trying to do good by them. And the other is that, getting back to what we talked about before, that every single individual matters.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, the others are, respect all wildlife, and the other, including humans. And I actually think that grooming, dog training, because I do see a lot of connections there, is
Mhm.
also respecting the human.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want somebody dropping a dog off who's a happy-go-lucky pup and having to leave traumatized for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't want that. And I'm not saying that that could or would happen frequently, but if it happened, it would be a bad scene. I mean, so grooming to me should be fun
Yeah.
for the dog.
Yeah.
You know, I understand that, you know, dogs sometimes get nervous when they're playing, although playing rarely ever escalates into fighting. But I think the fun to stress or anxiety quotient in grooming should be about 0.9999999. So,
Yeah.
you know, there might be a time when they get upset with an odor, with the sound of a machine. That was another thing we didn't talk about, but I know you have to worry about is the noise.
Oh, yeah, because I mean, what we're doing is where there's so much noise in the grooming environment, it's unreal. And we have to we're obligated to wear ear defenders to protect ourselves from the noise of the grooming environment, but we don't ever think about the dog.
That's funny because one of my friends said that, and it was a place where it wasn't quite a department store grooming, but there were a number of groomers. And she was really concerned, which really I give her credit for, that it was, if you will, not only the olfactory overload and fatigue, but the auditory overload.
Mhm.
And when she went back, her dog was fine, but I hadn't thought about that. And I'd written an article some years ago that the ear tag or the tags on a collar shaking
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
around
I read that one. Yep.
could affect a dog. And well, they can. But when my friend picked her up, and what alerted her was when she was paying the groomer who groomed her dog, they had to almost shout.
Yep. Yep.
And when she got into a car, her dog was fine.
Mhm.
But she said, God, I wonder what Annie's been up to there. The noise, the odors.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure what you can do about that. I mean, I just don't know.
There are things that you can do, so but it's more so when we think that a dog's quite anxious. It's not really a bottom line safety measure, so it's not something that we're obligated to do, but we can look at things.
Okay.
There's a device called the Happy Hoodie, which is like a kind of woolly device that comes kind of over the face and then muscles out the noise by covering the ears. But obviously, a lot of dogs don't like that.
Oh yeah.
And that compression, but also it's then taken away from ear signals and things like that. So it's kind of having an impact on facial expressions and observation in that sense. The other thing that they can do is put cotton wool in the eardrums, but again, it all depends on consent as well. So
Boy, one of my dogs would have. You might wind up armless.
yeah. I don't, and it's like you say, it's individual, isn't it? But it's trying to think of ways we can do it without actually having to invade a dog in order to do it.
Yes.
Our biggest kind of noisy tool is our high velocity dryers, and I absolutely hate them because they're just so noisy.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that.
Even the velocity and the pressure on the skin can be quite painful as well, and that's something that we talk about in HGA. Is obviously like dogs with touch sensitivity and things. How are they feeling when the air is hitting off their skin and things like that as well? And it's a minefield. It really is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's why. Yeah, I think when you're back from Africa, I need to interview you for my Psychology Today site.
Okay.
Well, it would be a written interview, and
Well,
quite eloquent. But no, and no, really, I'm quite serious about it. But it's almost like, what's grooming all about? The hidden side of grooming.
Yep.
I think it would be very popular, and people would love to read about it, just like they like reading about the hidden side of dog training.
Yeah.
No, I really do. So keep that in your brain.
I'll be enjoying the sunshine, hopefully. Well, Africa, it's winter at the moment, so I don't know how hot it will be, but we're going to a rehab clinic over there, and we're going to have it's me and my younger sister, so we're going to go and observe the rehab clinic in Kruger. So I can't wait.
No, that's lovely.
Yeah.
But do keep it in mind about when you get back, email me, and I'll definitely send you questions. How long are you going to be gone?
10 days.
Yeah, I'll send you some. I'm going to send you some questions, but if you want, I can wait till you get back.
Just send them, and I'll do it when I'm over there.
Okay.
Time to think when I've got no children. So the kids aren't coming with me, which is great. So
no, I understand. Good. I'll send you some questions later today. When are you leaving? Tomorrow?
No, the 19th I leave. So
okay, good. Yeah. I will send you them today sometime.
Okay.
And you've seen some of the interviews and stuff. No, and the reason I say that is simply because I just think that this would be so important for people who just say casually, "Oh, I'm going to a dog groomer," or not to make it impossible, but just to make them realize that there's a lot of layers to grooming, and there are some hidden sides of dog grooming.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want, I'll send you a copy of this recording as well, if that might help.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I'll send you over. But thank you so very much, Mark. Honestly, it's been an absolute
well, thank you.
And thank you, honestly, thank you everyone else for watching as well. I'm sure they're going to be overjoyed with the content and the information as well. So, but I'll be in touch with you when I get back from Africa anyway, and we can take it from there. But thank you.
Sounds good. Very much. Thank you, and thank you to all your listeners. And if you have any questions, you can email me. It's fine. I mean, I just want dogs to have the best life possible in all the situations in which we introduce them. I don't think dogs on their own would go to a dog trainer or a dog groomer, but that's okay. But and I'm going to write down a note here, and I will incorporate it into the questions. Is the whole idea of consent? I love it. Okay. So sounds good.
Question, Mark. So out of all the animals you've studied, is it dogs that's your favorite?
They're among the favorites.
Okay.
I mean, once again, I don't like, playing favorites, but coyotes, penguins, wild penguins in Antarctica they're amazing.
Yeah.
They have personalities, and I know people say that they look alike. They look very different when you really get to know each individual penguin.
Oh my God. Well, that's obviously a conversation for another day then.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that one of my favorite train rides is between Edinburgh and Glasgow when you go by all the breweries, because I'm a single malt person.
Oh, obviously, Scotland's very pretty. It's very pretty, and people don't realise the history either. I mean, I've not seen every part of Scotland yet, and I've got to go away elsewhere. But yeah, and we've got the Jacobite as well.
Yep.
And I've still not done that. So there you go. It's terrible.
Well, no, I love Scotland. I mean, I've been there a lot, and but I'm a PT Islay Scotch drinker. And yeah. So
well, see where I'm from, Johnny Walker. I don't know if you've ever heard of the brand Johnny Walker. And he was from our town. This is where he was. There was a big massive factory and everything where they made the Johnny Walker brand. So yeah.
Wow. Well, I love Lagavulin, and I like the real peaty scotches, and Jane Goodall on my favorite scotch is Lagavulin.
Oh, I just love that these are Scotch drinkers. That's great though.
Well, so maybe if
you come by, just give me a wee holler and I'll come and meet you, and I'll have a wee.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Great. And I'll talk to you very soon then, Mark. I'll look out.
Sounds good. Thank you for all you're doing, and you're caring about dogs, and have a lovely trip, and we'll be in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.